Fair Elections Act, a new list of changes to Canada's Election Act, but there is some concern from some of those. One of those concerned is Marjaleena Repo, a former federal election campaign manager. Now, there are a lot of new changes. There's a lot to this act, and on the surface, it seems like there's some good ideas, more security, changes to voter ID, robocalls, things like that. But you have some issues with it. What are those?
I have an issue that this particular act will force fewer and fewer people to, will allow fewer and fewer people to vote. We had a problem already in 2008 when the government introduced very stringent voter regulations requiring that you have to have an official document with your street address. In that particular election, Elections Canada estimated that about 500,000 people tried to vote and couldn't because they didn't have the right ID. And the question is the right ID. And this particular election act makes it even harder so that you'll have more and more people who can't vote, because previously, in 2008, you still could vouch for somebody else. I could vouch for somebody living in my house who didn't have a particular document. I had a perfect ID. Let's say a driver's license is a perfect ID, but only if it has your street address on it. If it just has a box number, if it has a rural route or general delivery, it's no good. You have to have something that's official with your street address. People went to vote in 2008. They had always voted, many of them, for as long as they could remember, and they were told, no, you can't, because you don't have the right kind of document. So now the issue is vouching, that the government wants to cancel the possibility of me vouching for somebody else.
Okay.
Both of us would have to have some ID, you see. I have a perfect ID, you would have some ID showing that you are the person, and I could say, yes, he lives in my house, I vouch for him, and you could vote. Now the government says, no more vouching.
Okay, so what are the options then for people who might not have that perfect ID, a driver's license, say?
Well, about 30% of Canadians don't drive, so they don't have a driver's license. You still have people who have driver's licenses without the name and without the street address. So the key is street address. So you will, if you have it in 2008, about 500 people couldn't vote. And 2011, 150,000 were vouched for. You could have 1 million people who are going to be turned away because they cannot provide that, they can't produce that kind of ID.
Okay, now what is the reasoning behind this? Is voter fraud? Is this a really common thing that they're trying to crack down on?
That's a false claim. That is absolutely documentably a false claim. Since 2008, vouching has been fraud proof because you could only vote for one person, and you had to have ID. The person had to have ID. You have the perfect ID, they have the incomplete, you both signed a document, you take an oath. So can you imagine how you could defraud? I mean, how could you arrange so that you would be in different polls? You both have to be in the same voting poll. You have to be, you can't vouch for somebody on the other side of the city. You can't, you have to have somebody in the exact poll, your neighbor, somebody in your house. Now, you can't do that. And you can't use the student information card as your street address documentation. So the government tells us, the minister, that the student can vote with a student card. Not so. Treaty card is no good either. They don't have addresses. Okay. So the address is the key, and therefore we'll have a loss. We have an increased voter inequality, which is a catastrophic thing, and therefore this bill has to go. And it probably has to go through the Supreme Court of Canada, cancelling it out, because it's against our Charter of Rights. Okay. The Charter of Rights guarantee a right to vote.
All right, well, we will see where it goes. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about it over the next little while. The Fair Elections Act. Marjaleena Repo, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome. You're welcome.